Cleveland Browns, they didn't do themselves any favors in the loss to Atlanta. Another heartbreaking loss for the Cleveland Browns. As always, after the game, we got to bring in the expert, the film guy from Pro Football Focus, John Kosko. We'll talk about offense, defense, and special teams and move forward a little bit, moving towards the Los Angeles Chargers. We'll do it all coming up on a day after episode of Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd. Your host from the barbershop, from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, YouTube, Monday through Friday, 11 to 1, Mr. Garrett Bush at GBush91. And, of course, joining us here today from PFF, Mr. John Kosko, as we'll get into some film that hopefully will be burned once it's finally fully assessed. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. John, we're going to get right into it today here. You're going to have to answer this question because it's obviously been the biggest debate the entire thing. For me, look, I understand playing aggressive. I do, but you're on the road. You know, it's an odd spot at 4th and 2 on the 3. And if you're not going to find a way to put Amari Cooper on the weakest cover guy for the Falcons, then don't even bother. Just take the dang points. So thoughts there, and then let's get into this offense a little bit because there were some bright spots on the offense, and I think the offense overall is playing well. I mean, there were some lows that slowed them down. They weren't consistent the entire 60 minutes like they needed to be. But again, still, you know, a decent showing, keeping the fact that you're playing a second quarterback for such a length of time.
Yeah, so considering the first drive, go for it situation, I'm all in favor of going for it in that situation. It's the issue I have is the play calling when you got down into the red zone, into the basically the scoring zone. That's the issue I have. Call better plays. I'm all for going for it in that situation. When you talk about like on the second and short situation where you rush to the line of scrimmage with I don't even know what the personnel was. You have Nick Chubb and one tight end, and that's everybody else are offensive linemen. And then you try to run that in. It failed. And then you tried to run another play quickly right after that, which was a pass play. So you legitimately have one pass catcher out there. Obviously it failed. So then you go for it on 4th down. You've already put yourself into a disadvantaged situation because of your poor play calling on 3rd down. Call better plays when it comes to the red zone. I think if you call better plays when it comes to the red zone, you come out of the first half 21-7 instead of just 10-10 or whatever it was, or 10-7 or whatever. I can't remember, whatever. It doesn't matter. But you get 21 points in that situation. So I think it's the play calling that was my issue with there. And then the play calling the rest of the game was an issue for me too. They called I don't even know how many screens they called, but 9 of them or whatever it was. And then every single one was failing, and he still called 2 on the last drive. That's where Stefanski, I think, lost his game, was in the play calling, not the decisions of like being aggressive and going for it on 4th downs. It was poor play calling of, hey, I got to adjust what I'm doing in this situation because clearly the Falcons are reading something in our screen game that is stopping it right before it even happens. Like they couldn't even get screen passes off. It was getting snuffed out so badly. So why keep calling it a play that's not working? You look at the Falcons on the other side of the ball. Arthur Smith just ran like 19 straight runs because they said, this team can't stop the run. We're gashing them for 10 yards of play. Why would we ever pass it? Then he got into the red zone and tried to pass it, and they had to settle for a field goal. So that was stupid on his part. But that's how you need to call. You keep calling the same play until they stop it, and you don't keep calling the same play if they keep stopping it. So that's where Stefanski for me lost it. And I forgot there are other questions that you have.
John, I think you just hit it right on the nail on the head. It's it's sometimes painful to watch. Sometimes you lose games because you just don't have the talent, and you just don't have the horses to get the job done. But the problem that's so frustrating with the Browns is that it's almost like they're telling themselves they have to be 50-50. This is my plan. He's actually looking on the sheet like, yeah, I need 5 more passes to equal the runs that I've done. So it's like you got a guy with 19 carries for 118 yards. At times when you use Chubb and Hunt in the backfield, it works successfully. When you run the man, during certain times of the game, he just needs more touches. When you got a guy averaging 6.1 yards per carry and another guy averaging 4.9 or 5 yards per carry, I couldn't do nothing different besides give those guys the ball. I just don't understand the justification of it. Like, what is he? Is he married to his scheme? What is it?
Again, I think it just comes down to like the place, like calling of the pass plays that you're calling, right? Like, I should have looked this up, and I meant to do that actually this morning, but if you would have taken out the screen plays on the play calls, I bet you the passing efficiency was excellent, except for the one interception that you threw at, in type of situation. You keep calling screens that are failing, that stop drives. I mean, it just kept doing it. So I don't mind, calling things that work, right? The run game was working and the non-screen game was working. But when you keep calling things that don't work, that's the issue, right? So it's just call plays that work. And if you come to a thing, it's like, hey, we like this in our game plan, so we're going to keep calling it regardless if it worked. Like, scrap it. That's not how you call football games. And so, like, it's one thing too. It's also the same thing with like, hey, I want to be aggressive on 4th downs. Let's say you get into 4th down situations and you fail on the first 2. And then you adjust your strategy. You go, oh, there's something wrong with our team. We're not getting on these 4th downs. Let's regroup here. Let me get us into a better situation. Let's punt it away, get us better field position here, because there's something's not right with our offense right now. But they failed on the first one, but then they made the next like several. So that was fine, right? Like it's like, okay, we're doing fine there. Screen game literally never worked. So why keep calling it? That's the issue I have. I don't mind switching up run pass type stuff, because when you call the Browns, for the most part, when they weren't calling screen plays, we're moving the ball. So regardless if it was run or pass, just not screens.
And John, the thing for me here is why can't it get to the point where it's balanced? Week 1, you couldn't get Amari Cooper involved. Donovan Peoples-Jones is involved. Week 2, week 3, Amari Cooper has monster days. Everybody else is kind of, basically in the witness protection program. David Njoku, and I think this was part of the problem in that first drive, is all the plays that led to that drive were like long yardage plays, and were passes that, were closer to the line of scrimmage, if not further. So when they got into that tight window, it kind of made it, almost gave Atlanta the advantage there. But now you get Donovan Peoples-Jones back involved, you get a little David Bell going, but you can't get Amari Cooper involved. And, this is something that they truly need to do, because you see the difference in confidence this team plays with when Amari Cooper is out there doing his thing.
Yeah, I think that's part of like, having an average level type quarterback. I think Amari Cooper was open, and with Jacoby Brissett wasn't just hitting him or whatever. I think that was an issue. And then when you ruin half of your play calls as screenplays, then it's like there's so few opportunities to actually get him the ball down the field. So you look at, I'm just gonna pull this up. If you look at his the EPA per play for non-screen plays, Jacoby Brissett was having a good game, and the efficiency was excellent. So I think it's just like you part of it is Jacoby Brissett not a great quarterback. So if he's not feeling it, which maybe he needs that screen game to get into the rhythm of being able to throw it down the field, and because he wasn't, like, I don't know, maybe that was the issue, but I think that's part of the situation of not having a top 2 type quarterback that can get your best playmaker on offense, a receiving option, the ball.
Okay, just real quick, G. If we're moving away from screenplays, can we take that David Njoku reverse and toss that in the river?
Listen, see,
Oh,
here
yeah.
you go. You know you my guy. You knew what was on my mind. You seen it all over my face. Go ahead, John. Talk to him about that tight end reverse. And the University of Georgia need to stop running it too, even though Bowers is pretty good. I'll say that.
So that happened right towards the end of the second half or the first half, right? And then what's his, Brissett threw a bomb down to the 1 yard line. So at least they recovered from that, but running a tight end end around is especially to one that's not David Njoku is a good athlete, but he's not
Kyle Pitts.
He's not Kyle Pitts for one, but he's also you run under rounds and reverses to dudes that run 4.3s and 4.2s. You don't run them to guys that run into 4.5s. If they're not,
and even his footwork looked like robotic and who? There's no way that's the way it looked like in the game. But yet he looked like money running it in practice, and they said, "Oh yeah, we're going to run with this." Because when he came around that corner, I mean, he look for one of the greatest athletic tight ends in the NFL. It was a terrible looking play.
And you pay a guy, right? Whatever it extended Njoku to, so they feel like they have to get him the ball in certain ways. And it's like, no, just let the game come to you, I think. And I think that's the issue I had with this whole offense is that they're trying to force things that you don't need to force. Just let the game come to you. Hey, the run game works. Let's keep feeding those guys the ball. Hey, our screen game doesn't work. Let's come off of that and let's, work our quick game, do some play action stuff because the play action stuff was working great, especially early on. I don't know why he went away from it.
It is sad. And to be fair to David Njoku, currently on pace for 76 receptions, 800 plus yards. For David Njoku, right now, he's showing basically the Browns the reward statistically for what they invested in him as long as they never call.
He's playing well.
Yes,
other than the fumble, he's been playing well. And the reverse is not his fault. That was a bad block by – who was it out there? Is he the tight end or is it Michael Dunn? One of the two.
Well, you can't hold somebody for 9.5 seconds while your tight end moves his way around.
So. Why he tries to get a field.
Yeah. The Browns lost an average of negative 1.017 per screenplay. Part of that's the fumble, but that just kind of shows you how bad it was. They said zero screenplays had success. Mainly because of the fumble, but
granted, and there was one that was there that should have been a touchdown to Kareem Hunt, but again,
right, that's another thing too. Brissett, why did he double clutch that? I don't know. He just didn't have a great game. Typically he does play better. He's more consistent. And he can just, I don't know. He wasn't feeling the screen game. That's part of it too, because there's some that he should have been able to hit, but they were also sniffing him out. So.
Yep. All right, we're going to switch it up here. We're going to get to the defensive side of the ball here. And if you thought there was maybe some laughs here and possibly some tears about the play, I can only imagine what's going to be like when we flip it up to the other side of the ball here. Your hosts, Garrett Bush, Jeff Lloyd, PFF's John Kosko, in along for the ride. PrizePicks, daily fantasy. We've talked about PrizePicks before. And for me, look, you get to these Thursday night games, you get to the Sunday night game, you get to the Monday night game where maybe your team's not playing. But, hey, I want to have a little action. I want to let something to watch for here. You can take 2 to 5 players. All they have to do is score more or less than the PrizePicks projection. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport you can watch. That is the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college football, women's collegiate sports, and the WNBA, boxing, MMA. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Save and fast withdrawals, currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. All caps, no space. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you 100, etc., etc. Don't forget to use the promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100.
Well, we went over the offense. We back at it, and let's get to the defense on the Locked On Browns podcast. G. Bush, Jeff Lloyd, joined by Pro Football Focus John Kosko, as we always do after a Browns game. John, we've talked about this a whole lot. The Browns defensive line, I was taking a look at it. and they were getting destroyed. They were getting caved down. There was no gap of integrity. Guys were just losing. I saw guys on regular rundowns just losing contain. And I'm like, what are you doing? You have that gap. Guys get washed to the other side. And by the way, defensive tackles. Oh my God. I mean, Tommy Togiai came in and played. I think he had a 24. Jordan Elliott did get a sack, which should have been a plus, but he had like a 29 or 30 or something. I mean, overall, the defensive line, we knew they were dragging. I didn't see linebackers fitting, and we had another busted coverage. Sort this out for me, dog. Make me feel better about this.
No, there's nothing to make you feel better about. I thought there was going to be more to that question, but there isn't. So I'm sorry.
No.
26.8, 27.3, 27.8, 34.6, 39, 38.9. Those are the grades of, well, one of them was John Johnson, but those are 4 of the 5 of those were defensive linemen, or also Jacob Phillips in there. Atrocious run defense grades. Just atrocious.
Oh.
You're talking about they had some flashes, right? Everybody remembers the Jacob Phillips play where he stopped them on 3rd down. Huge play to force that field goal, right? He was awful the rest of the game, though. He had 7 tackles, but the thing is, like, how many of them for stops? Like, only he had 3 stops in the game, was out of gap, like, constantly. And also part of this is the issue with the defensive tackles that were terrible. So Jordan Elliott, Tommy Togiai, Alex Wright, they were all really bad in this game. Perry Winfrey was better. He was a 58.4, but that's still bad.
That's like Harvard versus community college, though, what we're talking about these guys right now.
This is why these guys are all backups, right? And also why everybody and their moms are talking about how the Browns need to get better at the defensive line because of these guys. They if you ask them to play for a full game, 50 plus snaps, which most of these guys did, it's bad news. And it was really bad. You talk about a team, from a team standpoint, they're the lowest graded run defense in the NFL for the season. Obviously this week was the worst as well at a 27. So it was all bad on the defensive side. The one bright spot you want to look at is Denzel Ward finally showed up and he had a really good game. He had his coverage grade of 92.8. So he was excellent there. But he's also bad in run defense too, but whatever.
But see, that's the part that's disheartening about this. We all went into this all week long, so worried about Cordarrelle Patterson. Turns out that was never a thing anyway. And there's 2 running backs from the Falcons and a wide receiver that I'm sure Browns fans still don't know who the hell their names are. But they could not be stopped. And John, look, some of it comes down to I don't want to put this on Joe Woods because John and I, when we talked today, so backups played like backups. That's kind of, you expect that at times here. But, John, what about saying, well, screw this? And a couple of years ago, when you went down to Tennessee in 2020 and you made a commitment to saying, we're going to put as many guys in the line of scrimmage because you want to know what? We're not going to lose to Derrick Henry. To the point there where it was 6 carries in a row, 7 carries in a row. How about at that point saying, look, I'll put 10 in the box. I'll put 11 in the box because if you're going to keep running it, I got to prove that I can do something to stop it.
Yeah, especially after the first, they had a break where the 3rd quarter ended and then the 4th quarter started, and they're like, hey, we can regroup. Let's figure this out. Let's make a stop here. Nah, they didn't. They didn't do anything different. They just got run over like, and a buffalo herd going over and trampling over, I don't know, whatever. So they just I have a better metaphor, but I'm not going to cuss. So it's just you want to coming from a play calling standpoint, they have a plan going into this game and they just didn't adjust from it because it's like, hey, this is not working. We got to fix this. They didn't change it. You look at Atlanta they kept running the ball because it was clearly working for them. Browns didn't change anything defensively to go, hey, this isn't working for us. We need to figure out something to stop it. I get it. You're down, pretty much all your starting defensive linemen, but you've got to do something to protect those guys. And this is part of this is, hey, Jake, why I was really worried about Jacob Phillips going in there. He was bad. Anthony Walker maybe could have righted that ship, maybe be a leader out on that defense because, he is that for them. So, you lose him, you lose obviously Myles, you lose Clowney. Those guys are all good run defenders, Clowney especially. So it's just, that was a difference in the game. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why they lost this game, but like obviously, if you can't stop the run and you're giving up 10 yards a pop in the third and fourth quarters, it's it's hard to win those games.
Especially since Marcus Mariota completed 7 passes.
He was terrible in this game too.
He was horrible. He was horrible. So it's
like, I'll do this to them like I did to Pittsburgh. Why are you not playing the rookie? Like, because if that's what you're getting out of the veteran, the rookie must be stinking up the absolute joint if you're not going to him.
He's not very good. Ritter's not very good. So
he may be able to complete more than 7 passes.
Maybe, but is he going to be able to hand it off like Mariota did? He had some of those elite handoffs there.
Sprint handoff. He telegraphs it really well. He shows the ball.
Carries out the fake. It's good stuff. Top shelf stuff.
Exactly. But no, I think the Browns they had a lot of mistakes in this game, coaching wise, that obviously they need to correct, and this shouldn't keep happening. Like, they'd been run over before. They should have an idea of like, hey, we're getting run over. We got to. This is our adjustment to make sure that doesn't happen. We have guys in the back end that should be able to stop pass plays or whatever. If you invest that money in Denzel Ward, invest a first round pick and Greg Newsome, obviously all that money in John Johnson, you've got to be able to trust those guys to stop it on the back end and at some point. And so let those guys lock it down and load the box to be able to stop those runs.
Well, look, John, it's been 3 years for this administration. When they sit down at whatever point here and start looking to how they're going to assemble a roster for 2023, whatever thoughts they have had as far as how they're going to look for defensive tackles, they need to burn the theory to the ground, because anything they've touched has not worked. Nothing has worked. This has been an issue from the day they walked into the building, and it's probably worse now than they did walk in the building, because at least they had Sheldon Richardson in 20.
Yeah, I think one of the things too, like they kind of take a compartmentalized approach to every offseason. So in first offseason, they wanted to fix the offensive line, and they did, right? Like, they obviously made it from a mid to bottom tier type offensive line to one of the best, if not the best. Year 1, year 2, they went to fix the defense and pretty much did fix the defense. As a whole, like, the secondary was obviously a lot better. Pass rushers were better. Obviously, the issue was stopping the run defense. But then year 3, they're like, hey, we need to upgrade at the quarterback position. So I think it feels like they've been like prioritizing certain things per offseason. And I think, who knows what they're going to prioritize this offseason, but you would have obviously hope that like addressing the ability to stop, get some run stuffers in there and make it so this doesn't happen. Obviously would be, it would hope be high on their list.
We're going to continue to roll on here. Garrett Bush, Jeff Lloyd. We're joined by PFF, John Kosko, your latest Locked On here. Got a couple thoughts here from John on the Los Angeles Chargers. Again, Browns are going to go into a matchup here where there could be a couple of things that favor them. If some things do break right for the Browns here, we're going to get to that just a minute on your latest LOB. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There is a new flavor. Ready? Delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of actually making it. Plus, it is healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. Like all Built Bars, the new cookie dough chunk puff is covered in 100% real chocolate. That means they're healthy and tasty. Chocolate-covered cookie dough with a light, fluffy texture. So good. You are going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff, whether you need a snack for your workout, a late-night treat, or just to grab a quick bite. Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built Bar. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON15 and get 15% off your order. Again, promo code LOCKEDON15.
Welcome back to the Locked On Browns podcast. We're joined by Pro Football Focus's analyst, John Kosko. We talked about offense, defense. We talked about the blunders we've had. Moving forward, got a game coming up against the Chargers, and I talked to Tim Couch today, and I said, when you got a guy like Justin Herbert and you got a guy like him coming in and you struggle against, I would say, is the bottom feeders in terms of quarterbacks in the league. Baker Mayfield, 32 out of 32, they're trying to bench him. You look at Joe Flacco, who's not the starter anymore. He's back on the bench. You take a look at Mr. Trubisky. He's already been benched. And now you talk about Marcus Mariota, who completed 7 passes, 7 of 19, and only outside of the 145-yard play that was a bust, showed you nothing in the air. But now you in the midst of some real ball players. You got to start touching the Joe Burrows, the Lamar Jacksons. They're going to take a look at those guys as well. So in your opinion, when you look at this Chargers team, I mean, what are the Browns going to do in the secondary if they still can't clean these busts up? I mean, I just don't understand where they go and how they affect the offense in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, they obviously need. One of the issues with this game was allowing, when they did get pressure on Mariota, to let him off the hook. There were multiple times where it felt like they should have had like maybe 6 sacks, and if you have like Clowney and Myles out there, they actually do get that many maybe. But without those guys, it's like they don't have guys that could finish. So you really got to hope that those guys are in there. That helps. So like when the defense maybe locks it down on the back end, that somebody gets home to get Herbert on the ground, or at least force him to throw it away. So with the secondary, they had one bust in this game, right? And it was off of a scramble type drill to play, which kind of can happen on those. It just does. So like, and from a secondary standpoint, like the Browns secondary, if they're on point, is really good. It really is good, and it's one of the top units in the NFL. So I think if they can just play sound defense on the back end and just making sure that the secondary is in position, the right places, they can cause fits for this defense, for this offense. But we've seen what we seen last year, where Justin Herbert shredded the Browns defense for 9,000 yards or whatever it was, and 50 points or whatever it was. So they need to be disciplined on the back end, and they have to absolutely have their communication on point, because if they have anything that happens like they did last year, there's no way they can score with this team. Not a chance, because
just like that, they'll be right down the field.
Yeah, exactly. And the one thing too is that obviously Bosa's out. That helps from a Browns offensive perspective. Herbert's still hurt. Like that rib is not gonna just heal itself automatically. Like, if you can get a couple of hits on him and get him hurting, it's going to be a problem for him. So I think with, obviously you're not going out there to hurt a dude, but like you sack a guy and get him on the ground, it's like that's going to flare up for him for sure. So I think that's what you've got to get the pressure on him. One thing that is interesting about Herbert this year is that he's not really trying to stretch the field, and that's, I think, more of a scheme thing, because we obviously know the type of arm he has. He can sling it all over the place, but he's not really testing it downfield. He's averaging just 7.5 yards average on depth of target. So I think for the Browns, like part of that is if you can play too high shell and keep everything in front of you, you might be able to keep them at bay for a bit.
Yeah, one thing I do like that you brought up was, obviously the inability to get Marcus Mariota to the ground. Look, obviously Herbert is not the athlete that Mariota is, but keep in mind, he's a good athlete, but he's also 3 inches taller and about 30 pounds heavier. So that brings his whole, issues of trying to get the guy to the ground as it is as well. With Myles, and now where it came out to, this could be something that could bother him for 4 weeks, because I think everybody all of a sudden now, oh no, does that mean Myles Garrett's going to be out, for the next 3 weeks? I think the biggest issue for Myles is that it's one arm that had basically 3 issues, a shoulder, a bicep, and a bunch of mini cuts on his hands from, glass getting into his hands. So I think maybe the Browns kind of thought maybe if they put him out there yesterday, especially with Clowney not playing, okay, he's going to get double teamed. And how in the world can we put a guy out there with one arm who's going to get double teamed all day? You think it's a realistic chance you could probably get him back this week if you're basically, you need them both back. Obviously, you definitely need Clowney back, but at least if you have Clowney, I think you feel a bit more comfortable that say, hey, if Myles thinks he can do it, we're going to put a brace on the shoulder anyway. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, I think if this was like a must-win type game, he probably could have played. I think he probably could have played from a health standpoint, but they probably wanted to keep him. Hey, we're going to take it easy with you and not get you in this game or whatever, so you can get, we're in it for the long haul. And I think this coming up game, like you're probably hoping that you would still be able to win this game and come into this game 3-1. Now that you're sitting at 2-2, and then you've got, you look at the rest of the schedule, you've got New England coming up, you got Cincy, you got Baltimore. Like, hey, like with the Chargers in there, they got some injuries as well. I don't know if Keenan Allen will play. Obviously Bosa being out, Herbert is on the mend. He's not
left tackle's out for the year.
Exactly. So it's like, hey, there is an opportunity to win this game because they're not 100%. You got to be able to take advantages of those situations. So the Browns, and really should be 4-0 at this point. They need to get a couple more wins in here, otherwise their season is going to be slipping away pretty quickly.
They need, and that's I think the big one. You gotta be able to beat a good team. I think the Chargers are a good team, and winning against a name brand organization could give you a shot in the arm. But they at least got to be 5-6, the bare minimum to have any sort of shot if when Deshaun Watson comes back. So they have to pick it up. They got to win some games where they ain't supposed to traditionally. And they're gonna have to, come out and dominate a few teams that they didn't think they might have had to struggle with. So I'm all for it. We'll see what they do. Any final thoughts, Jeff?
And for me, just like the last maybe lone bright spot here is the Houston Texans ran the ball for over 9 yards yesterday.
Wow.
Granted, that was a 75-yard touchdown run against the Chargers. But Browns have better running backs. They have better offensive line. Of course, these are all things we said going into this game yesterday.
The Chargers have under Brendan Staley have had issues stopping the run, and I didn't even look at what their team run defense ranking was, but obviously without Bosa, who's one of the better run defenders in the NFL, it's going to be an issue for them. And so they're not great. They're 20th in the NFL in our run defensive grade. So if they gave up,
something to focus on.
Yeah, exactly. You should be able to run on them.
We always appreciate John Kosko for making the time from us here. Of course, John been with PFF forever. He's probably been here almost since the inception of Locked On Browns, coming day after for the good, the bad, or the ugly of it, as we always know. Appreciate you, John, certainly for your time. If you're not aware of, at John Kosko 3, make sure you're checking that out. Of course, John over on Twitter. It was a quiet week, though. No players calling John out, so that's always good for John on a Monday morning. Part of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, the Barbershop 92.3 The Fan, at GBush91, Mr. Garrett Bush, myself, Jeff Lloyd, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd, the show itself at Locked On Browns follow back account. Appreciate everyone who makes Locked On Browns their first listen, whether it's in podcast form or, of course, available now on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. You have the notifications on, so all that content comes to you as soon as it is available. We sorry for the mishap. There were little technical difficulties. The LOB, it didn't stream on both channels last night, so we do apologize for that. That will not be an issue going further. And look, this has been the thing with all these games getting so close in the last 2 minutes. We normally check our boxes as we're going along, but once we hit that 2 minute, we were right into it. And sadly, we did miss something. So sorry for everybody about that. Appreciate everybody, though, for, of course, being along here for the ride. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on the LOB. Let's go Browns.